Hello, I'm Elizabeth, a 40-year-old woman who's been married twice. My current marriage is everything I could have hoped for, but my first marriage was anything but. Thomas, my first husband, and I were the classic high school sweethearts. He was the jock, and I was the cheerleader. Back then, he brought me happiness, and since he was my first love, I invested everything into that relationship, convinced we were meant to be together forever. We even made plans to attend the same university to stay close. But everything changed when I was 20 and unexpectedly found out I was pregnant during my sophomore year. It was a huge shock and a disappointment for both me and my family. My mother had always been wary of Thomas, sensing something off about him, but I was determined to prove her wrong. Despite her concerns, my family agreed to support us as we finished our education and worked toward building stable futures, a gesture I'll always be grateful for. We got married in a simple courthouse ceremony, and soon after, we welcomed our first child. At first, Thomas was a committed father, and I felt reassured that I had made the right choice. But things began to unravel when I was pregnant with our second child. By then, I had graduated college, but I had to leave my job to take care of the kids while Thomas worked tirelessly to provide for us. However, not long after our second child was born, Thomas's behavior shifted drastically. Despite my efforts to communicate, he grew distant. Then, one day, after taking the kids out, I returned home to find the apartment emptied of all his belongings. I was in a panic, the children crying, and I tried calling him, but he didn't respond. Desperate, I went to my mother's house, fighting back tears. She let us in right away, her concern evident when she saw us. I told her what had happened, still reeling from the shock. Why had he just left? My mother, ever the calm presence, suggested we hold off on any drastic decisions like filing for divorce. She offered her unwavering support no matter what the outcome. Though my heart was heavy with confusion and pain, I knew my focus needed to be on our children. I wanted answers, but I also needed to move forward for their sake. As always, my mother's advice was wise. The months that followed were filled with tears and resilience as I adjusted to life without Thomas. I found myself raising two children who reminded me so much of him, and night after night, I cried myself to sleep. But as time passed, the pain started to fade, and when the kids asked about their father, I told them the truth. They were upset, but their ability to understand and cope amazed me. Through it all, my mother was my rock, helping me navigate single parenthood in ways I never could have managed alone. Then, 11 years later, my life took an unexpected turn. It happened one evening at a bar during a friend's birthday celebration. My mother had graciously agreed to watch the kids, giving me a rare chance to unwind and enjoy some adult company. I stuck close to my friends, laughing and chatting, but as the night wore on, a man named Jack approached me. My friends had been encouraging me to give dating another shot, but the scars from my past with Thomas made me hesitant. Still, there was something about Jack that made me want to let my guard down. He offered to buy me a drink, and I accepted. We chatted while waiting for our drinks, and he asked what brought me to the bar. "It's my friend's birthday," I replied, keeping it simple. "That's great. How about I buy drinks for your whole group?" he suggested, surprising me. "Your whole group? There are 6 of us," I said, astonished by his generosity. "It's no problem," he said with a warm smile, a kindness I hadn't seen in a long time. As we spent the next couple of hours talking, Jack's charm and humor were hard to resist. He joked about his finances after making such a grand gesture, and I teased him about it. "So, you must be pretty well off," I said, with a playful grin. He laughed. "I guess you could say that, but I don't like to flaunt it. It's just nice to do something special for people, especially on a birthday." I admired his humility. "It's rare to find someone who does that without bragging. It's really kind of you." He smiled. "Well, I guess I enjoy making a good impression, especially with beautiful women." I laughed and teased. "So every pretty face gets this treatment?" "Maybe," he admitted with a grin. "But hey, it's your friend's birthday, not a lie." "True," I agreed, jokingly warning him about his weaknesses. He jokingly suggested that having a beautiful woman by his side might cure him of his generosity. The conversation flowed easily, something that surprised me given my normally introverted nature. Maybe it was Jack's effortless charisma or the relaxed atmosphere, but for the first time in a long time, I felt at ease. It felt like a new beginning, one full of hope, and a chance for love beyond the pain I'd carried for so many years. As the evening came to a close, my friends and I exchanged our thanks with Jack before saying our goodbyes. We swapped numbers, and from that point on, our communication was constant, messages and calls flowing back and forth. We talked about everything, from everyday events to exciting personal milestones, gradually weaving Jack into the rhythm of my daily life. What began as casual meetups in public soon evolved into more intimate moments, including visits to each other's homes. I'll never forget the first time I saw Jack's house. It was nothing short of a mansion. He laughed off my astonishment, casually mentioning that perhaps one day, We'd share this kind of luxury together. Jack was upfront about his intentions. He expressed a clear desire for marriage and a life shared with me, something he said he'd never felt before. His honesty and comfort with me made it easy to fall deeper for him. More importantly, he embraced my children as his own, showing them care and affection that solidified my growing love for him. When I finally opened up about my past with Thomas, Jack's response was more than I could have hoped for. He went out of his way to prove his dedication, showing me that he was nothing like Thomas. This contrast became even clearer as time went on, helping me understand why so many had questioned my first marriage. While the end of my relationship with Thomas had been painful, Jack's love and support helped me close that chapter, and for that, I was endlessly grateful. After a year of dating, Jack and I didn't waste time getting married. We opted for a destination wedding, keeping it small and intimate, with only our closest friends and family there to celebrate. My children were thrilled about the wedding and frequently expressed their love for Jack, which was another blessing in our new life together. With Jack by my side, every worry I had seemed to fade away. He accepted my children as his own and even took it a step further, supporting their education and personal growth. Though I insisted I could handle it, he had their rooms customized to their tastes before we all moved in together, an act of thoughtfulness that spoke volumes about his commitment. His actions were a sharp contrast to Thomas's indifference and played a significant role in healing our family. Not long after our wedding, we welcomed a child of our own. Jack's love for all our children was unwavering, and he never showed favoritism. A year into our marriage, my children asked Jack to adopt them legally, sealing our bond as a family. From then on, we did everything together, dining out, taking vacations, and simply enjoying each other's company. My career flourished, and Jack's business continued to thrive. Life felt perfect. 6 years flew by, filled with love and stability. Then, one day, out of nowhere, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, the voice on the other end caught me off guard. "Hello, guess who?" "It's Elizabeth," the familiar voice said. Confused, I asked, "Who is this?" "It's Thomas," he replied, as if it was no big deal. "How have you been?" I was stunned. "Thomas? How did you find my number?" His response was casual, almost dismissive. "I found it, that's all. I don't know why you're acting surprised." The call from Thomas was a shock, especially after all the years of building a new life without him. His sudden reappearance stirred up emotions I thought I had long buried, challenging the peace and stability Jack and I had carefully crafted. Thomas tried to I hung up the phone with a sense of disgust, my anger boiling over. Thomas had the audacity to brag about his newfound wealth, and it left me seething. But it wasn't my own anger that consumed me, it was the overwhelming ache I felt for my children, who had grown up without their father. To hear him so casually discard his responsibilities in favor of financial gain was a painful reminder of the difficult start we'd had as a family. Revolted by his selfishness and lack of any moral compass, I immediately blocked his number, determined to leave that chapter of my life behind. Later, I confided in Jack about the call. He was upset, but he fully supported my decision to shut Thomas out. Still, my resolve was put to the test when, about a week later, I received yet another call from an unknown number. Of course, it was Thomas again. The frustration built up inside me. How many times would I have to distance myself from a past that refused to let go? Thomas's calls quickly became a relentless stream of boasts about his new life, his extravagant purchases, his new family, and how his career was flourishing. Every call grated on me, and I eventually started disconnecting him without hesitation. But Thomas didn't stop. He found ways around my blocks, using different numbers, as though getting under my skin brought him some twisted satisfaction. In the end, I just ignored him altogether, though he still found ways to get through. One particularly stressful day at work, Thomas called again. His voice, full of smug arrogance, grated on my nerves. He went on about his success, trying to make me feel envious of his lavish lifestyle and his promotion at a prestigious company, Digidome. I had no patience for it and ended the conversation abruptly, refusing to let his words get to me. But as much as I tried to brush it off, something about his boastfulness stuck with me. Digidome was a well-known name in the media world, a company famous for elevating top influencers and journalists. It wasn't just any company, it was Jack's company, my husband's. The realization hit me like a thunderclap. Not only had Thomas's abandonment of our children caused immeasurable hurt, but now, his connection to Jack's company gave me an unexpected opportunity to confront him in a way I hadn't imagined. As soon as Jack came home, I couldn't wait to tell him about this strange coincidence. Jack's reaction was one of protectiveness, his anger flaring at the mere mention of Thomas. But as I explained the link between Thomas and Digidome, his demeanor shifted. There was a mix of disbelief and something else, an almost strategic gleam in his eye. We both understood the weight of this revelation. This wasn't just about dealing with Thomas's harassment, it was about righting a wrong, about giving him a taste of the neglect and pain he had caused, not just to me, but to our children. When Thomas called again, bragging about his promotion. I was ready. "He's working at your company?" I asked Jack, still in shock. Jack, sensing how absurd the situation was, teased me for not connecting the dots sooner, but I wasn't in the mood for jokes. This was no coincidence, it was an opportunity. Jack half-jokingly suggested firing Thomas, but we both knew that wouldn't be enough. A simple dismissal wouldn't give us the closure we needed. Instead, we began formulating a plan, one that would allow us to hold Thomas accountable, not just for the harm he'd caused, but for his arrogance and lack of remorse. Over the next few weeks, I carefully recorded every call he made, each conversation a piece of the puzzle. Thomas's calls were becoming increasingly boastful, and I knew that soon enough, they would help us execute our plan. In 5 months, Digidome was hosting a major event, one that would be attended by influential figures in the media industry. Thomas was in charge of the event. It was the perfect stage for our plan to unfold. My role was simple: keep recording his calls, stay patient, and wait for the moment when everything would come together. The time for reckoning was coming, and with each call, I felt a sense of purpose and anticipation build. It wouldn't be just about getting back at Thomas, it would be about ensuring that his actions, and the way he discarded us, wouldn't go unnoticed. As the event drew near, my anticipation reached a fever pitch. At first, I had reservations about attending. Large gatherings in the spotlight were never my preferred settings, but the chance to witness Thomas's downfall firsthand was too tempting to pass up. Jack understood my hesitation but also recognized the importance of this moment. To mark the occasion, he bought me a stunning dress, a symbol of the dignity and strength with which we would confront the situation. I waited discreetly in the car, staying out of view until the right moment arrived. Jack's introduction was my cue. He began his speech by announcing that he wanted to introduce his wife to the company for the very first time. This wasn't just about revealing me, it was a deliberate setup to make a bold statement, one that would emphasize our values and the consequences of betrayal. As I walked onto the stage, Thomas was already there, and the shock on his face was immediate. He paled, visibly shrinking as if trying to make himself disappear. I couldn't help but smirk as I passed him, watching him desperately dab at his forehead with a handkerchief. Jack took full advantage of the moment, lavishing me with praise and telling the audience how much I had transformed his life and how rewarding co-parenting our children had been. With each compliment, Thomas grew more uneasy, sweat pouring down his face as the reality of the situation set in. The audience applauded, their approval echoing in the room, and my heart swelled with pride. Then, Jack's tone shifted to something more serious. He began to speak of the harassment I had endured from my ex-husband, detailing how Thomas had abandoned his family for a wealthier lifestyle, only to end up working for Jack's company. The room went silent, filled with murmurs as people began to put the pieces together. Jack called for quiet before dramatically revealing that Thomas was the man in question. Thomas, looking for an exit, froze as Jack pointed him out, his attempt to escape only making him look more guilty. The audience's reaction was palpable: shock, disbelief, and curiosity, but Jack wasn't done. He played recordings of Thomas's boastful, harassing calls to me, each word of his arrogance echoing through the room. As the last recording ended, Thomas stood frozen, unable to defend himself. Jack then made the announcement: Thomas was being terminated from the company, a decision that was met with overwhelming support from the crowd. As Jack and I left the stage, the sense of vindication was unlike anything I had ever felt. Thomas was escorted out, and the event continued without a hitch. It was a triumph, not just for me, but for our entire family. The very next day, a new opportunity came knocking, a job offer at a prestigious firm, a direct result of the strength I had shown in the face of adversity. It was a sweet culmination of a long and difficult journey, a reminder that sometimes life brings unexpected rewards when you stand firm. Then, an unexpected call arrived. I didn't recognize the number, but when I answered, it was Thomas on the other end. "It's quite daring of you to call me after